Greetings, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Orchestrating Enterprise Transformation with IT Road Mapping. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. A brief question and answer session will follow the formal presentation. Please submit your questions using the WebEx chat feature. Names and companies will remain anonymous. If anyone should require operator assistance during the call, please press *0 on your telephone keypad. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. It is now my pleasure to introduce your moderator, Dr. Uli Kalik. Thank you, Dr. Kalik. You may now begin.
Thanks, Christian. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody on that call. It's a pleasure being your host today. We are going to discuss about orchestrating the enterprise transformation using IT road mapping. And one could probably ask, okay, why exactly are we discussing about road mapping and why now? Haven't we all just spent the last 3, 4, 5 months discussing about the budgets for 2010, discussing about the project portfolio for this year? Haven't we all done the renewal of our contracts with like technology suppliers and haven't we agreed on the release plans for this year? And surely, yet this has been activity over the course of the last few months, but still there are questions that remain on the agenda continuously. One of that questions is, for instance, how can IT ensure that the IT projects don't adversely affect business project delivery? Or how can we ensure that business project plans are built on assumptions that are not being deliverable by the IT environment? Or how can one communicate sudden changes to the plans throughout an increasingly complex organizational setup? How can one demonstrate progress on delivering to a business strategy? All these are questions that are being asked on a very constant basis and that we need to be able to provide answers to, and road mapping is an essential centerpiece in providing these answers. So one of the major drivers in this conversation is obviously time. So it is important to understand what is the timing of the projects with regards to business plans in order to better support the business. It is about a careful calibration of the different IT projects and plans across a dispersed IT organization, avoiding conflicts that obviously can cause project overruns and ultimately result in higher costs. While consolidating the precise timing of shutting down applications, rolling over to new technologies, introducing new IT supports in such complex organizational setups is equally important. So all these are aspects that we will be discussing throughout the webinar today. And I'm very happy to have Jeff Scott joining us today from Forrester Research. Jeff is going to take the first part, the introductory part, into the subject of road mapping, and then I will come back for the second part, giving you a bit more of a perspective on the technology piece. With this, I'm handing over to Jeff.
Well, good day, everyone. Thanks, Uli. I'm really pretty excited about giving this presentation because at Forrester, what we're seeing is a tremendous interest in road mapping. You heard Uli talk about all the different ideas that people had about road mapping and how to use them. And just a quick story here. About 6 months ago, I was asked by some of our infrastructure analysts to do a presentation to some of our really technical infrastructure clients on road maps. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just throw together a few pictures and talk to these guys, and it'll all kind of be okay, and we'll satisfy what they need. And once I started looking at this, the whole concept got a little bigger in terms of understanding what's going on. But the really interesting part was our client reaction to this. There is a tremendous amount of interest in road mapping, And one of the nice things I like about doing the session today with Alphabet is one of the questions I always get is, okay, what tools should I use? So there's a nice synthesis here between some ideas and then getting on with doing it. Really interesting. The other thing I would say is just along this whole presentation piece is I've been with Forrester 2.5 years, and this is probably the hottest topic in terms of presentations that I've had. And I think the reason is we all want to know how to get where we're going. I talk to CIOs and CTOs and architects all the time about strategy, and what we know is it's pretty easy for us to say, there's the vision, there's the future state, that's where we want to be. But we can't. It's very hard to get people to take action to get us there until they have a clear pathway. And in essence, that's the value of roadmaps, is what they really do is help everyone in the organization understand what the path is, and if they're done correctly, tell them what the next step is. And that's really what everybody needs to know. If you want to get an organization behind your vision, what they need to know is, what's the next step I take? What do I do next? So we're going to talk about three things here. Really quickly kind of go through what I call road mapping essentials. So what is a roadmap? How does it fit into the landscape? And what does a good roadmap look like? And then a little bit about building and managing them, a little kind of what we see our clients doing, and then just a kind of a one-page summary about things to keep in mind as you do roadmaps. So let's get off started here about to look at road mapping essentials. So what's driving the interest in all this stuff? One is growing complexity in the technology space. There are just more moving parts out there. There's more software, there's more hardware, there's more diverse processes and how we're going to manage all this stuff. And I've been in the tech industry for over 30 years, and I keep thinking almost every year that, okay, it's going to slow down, it's going to slow down, it's going to slow down. It never slows down. I've given up that kind of thinking. And maybe it's wishful thinking on my part. Also, since there is a lot of complexity here, there's a move going on today to look at things more in a portfolio format because the individual details just get to be too big. And that's kind of moved beyond projects into application portfolios, technology portfolios, initiative portfolios, business project portfolios. And this whole portfolio view is driving us to think about how do we look at what we're doing at a higher level than being down in the details. Growing business complexity, I mean, not only is the technology getting more complex, but also is business, mergers, acquisitions, partnerships, globalization. All these things are driving organizations into much more complex structures, which again leads us to the need to have more simplistic ways to look at them. I myself worked in a company for 20 years that did 90 acquisitions. And so, believe me, we were in constant churn trying to figure out who are we, where are we going now after every 2 or 3 acquisitions. And then there's this what I think of as a renewed focus on business IT alignment. I think the whole business architecture space is driving that. It's always been a hot issue with CIOs, but it seems to me to be getting hotter almost by the moment. And one of the reasons that I think roadmaps work is that our typical IT planners, and I'll put that as strategists and architects and planners and all and any of those kind of guys, are pretty good at providing all the details. And typically when I look at architectural diagrams, there's a tremendous amount of complexity in them. But what we really need from an executive level, from a senior management level, and from a day-to-day operational level is a lot more insight and a lot less data. We need somebody to boil all that down into a more simplistic view so that I don't have to understand all that stuff. And really at the bottom line of this whole thing is, well, roadmaps just work. So here's a piece of research that we did late last year in September, and the question we asked was, when architects are looking across complex, multiple solution projects and stuff, what are the different ways they do to help manage those and articulate where things are going? And if you look at this list, I think it's really interesting that roadmaps are the second from the highest. And oh, by the way, there's only 1 or 2 points here difference, so you can put it right at the top. But they're even more effective in managing these large, complex things than a whole lot of stuff that we might think of being normally effective, such as building business cases and selling architecture stuff to the business and all those kind of things. So what we see is roadmaps are a very effective way to communicate complex projects, complex technology solutions. Anything that's got a lot of complexity into it, you can kind of roll it up into a roadmap and get a lot of mileage out of that. And we'll talk about why that is. So as we begin to look at this, I think the thing to keep in mind is that roadmaps are part of the strategic puzzle. And I would have to say that my biggest caution to everyone on the phone is that if you try to build roadmaps in isolation, you're probably going to run into problems. And that's going to be the thrust of what we talk about here. So where do these things fit? If I look at what I call the strategic planning hierarchy, at the very top there's a vision. This is where we want to go. Then there's some goals that provide the what I think of as qualifying attributes of that vision. So once I define those goals, now I have a pretty crisp view of what it means to be at that vision. And then I have a set of strategies, which are the very broad courses of action that I take to attain those goals. The objectives are sort of the milestones, if you will, along that strategy. And then I get down to initiatives, programs, so again, kind of broad activities, but now we're getting down to how do I actually reach these quantifiable objectives. And then at the very bottom, I've got projects, which is, well, okay, that's where the work really gets done. But in between there, I have roadmaps, which are really a way to show how a strategy evolves and how it works over time. So here's a visual of that. Kind of thing, so we can look at how they fit in. On the right-hand side here, I've got a vision. So in this particular case, a very simple vision, utility class infrastructure. So think of internal cloud. That's what I want. And if that's what I want, then around that vision, I've got a set of goals. One of those goals would be instant provisioning, a basic of utility class infrastructures. And so to get to that goal, I might need one or more strategies. And one of those strategies, in this case, is server virtualization. And what I can see along that strategy is I have an initiative, which might be a VM pilot. I have an objective at the end of that pilot to have, okay, I've got a working environment. And along that initiative, I have a set of projects that actually execute it. And where the roadmap comes in is it kind of puts together a succinct picture of the strategy, the initiatives, and the objectives as we go through. And remember that, so what you see is a roadmap is really a way to kind of illuminate the strategy. And so if you look at it as a communication vehicle, on first blush you can say, well, there's not enough data there. But in reality there is. And what we really want to get out of our roadmaps is a quick look to get a feel, if you will, for the change that's coming on. So what can we get? Well, one is we can get a sense of the velocity of change because almost all roadmaps have some kind of timeline on them. Sometimes we don't put that, but most of the time you see a timeline. So I can quickly just glance at this thing and say, oh, yeah, that's a 6-month project, a 6-year project, whatever it is. Decision points. As we move down a roadmap, frequently there are different phases, and at those phases we have some decisions to make. Keep investing, don't invest. Kill this, start this. Event sequencing, because normally things build through a roadmap. We can see what events depend on others. And if we just step back and look at the whole thing, in a glance, we can get some, again, feeling, not particularly quantifiable, but a feeling of, well, how much risk is there in what we're doing? The bottom line to all this, though, is that roadmaps are not strategies. They're a little more detailed than that, but they're not project plans either. If you're down to that level of detail, you've kind of lost the idea of a roadmap. So what I want to do here is just talk about what is the anatomy of a basic roadmap. And this is a pretty good picture. This is actually a roadmap that we use at Forrester to guide people through a process to get to a enterprise business architecture. And it's not the only path we have, but it's a common one that we see helping people do this. And if you look at it, it's really a basic path of plan, prototype, proof of concept, pilot, and then implementation. So it's a standardized, kind of very common thing that you see. So at the top, what we have is a defined goal, enterprise-wide business architecture. That's the goal. That's where we want to go, very clear. along the way, we have these time-sequenced events, and that's pretty much what you see in the majority of roadmaps. And then at each of these events, there's a go, no-go step. So there's a decision point here that says, okay, what do we do? Can we keep going forward or not? And then if we look along the timeline, we can see what's the velocity of change. So just in a second, looking at this very simple picture, I can get a lot of data. So it kind of fits my mantra of less data, more insight. Now, I can expand this roadmap into a much more comprehensive view. Same roadmap, I've just added different components. So for each of the steps along the way, I've kind of said, what's the goal? Where should I be at the end of that particular step? You can see at the top right, I've added the future state goals, so I've got more clarity about where we're trying to go. Bottom left, I've got current state. So now I've got a pretty good picture of current state, future state, how am I going to get there? And then I've added the vision along the vertical axis here. So become business architecture leaders. So that's kind of the vision for the group here. And then these little green things at the bottom are accelerators, which really are events that are coming from other roadmaps that I can leverage to enable this particular project. So now what I've done is provided a lot more data, still on a relatively simple picture. So let's jump now to just some very basic things about building and managing roadmaps. I don't think there's any rocket science here. This is pretty much a straightforward development view with the big caveat that I want these things to be consumer-centric, and we'll talk about what that means in about 2 slides from now. So it's really all about figuring out, okay, what are the strategic interests, so where are we going? How does my area or the technology or the projects that I'm managing fit into that plan? Who needs to know about what I'm doing? And then what do they need to know, which I think it's wrapped up in either a strategy document or a roadmap context document, which we'll look at on the next slide. And then we pick a format, and then we start looking at, okay, if this is my basic format, how do I modify it to hit different audiences? Because in this whole space of road mapping, one size doesn't fit all. What we're shooting for is a picture that really resonates with the audience. So when we look at roadmaps, and when I started this discussion, I said you got to be careful about creating roadmaps out of context. And so this outline here I call a context document. And when you look at it, it looks very much like a strategy document. And in essence, that's pretty much what it is. I can certainly build a skinnier document if all I'm trying to do is get to a roadmap. But the idea is I want to know what the current environment is, what trends are affecting me, future vision, changes, dependencies, those kind of things. And all of those kind of lead up to what I need to build a roadmap. And then most people will add implications and consequences to that, but that may or may not be there. And then more specifically, business implications. The reference part is a pretty important part, though, because, again, what you're doing is summarizing a lot of complex data into a very succinct picture. And that'll work really well for most people. They'll look at it, they'll get it, they'll be happy that you did it, they'll be able to make some decisions from there, and they'll go on. But other people are going to challenge and say, well, how did you get here? Why is this the roadmap? Why is this step 2 and not step 3? What happened to this idea? And if you're going to have a really good roadmap that you're going to use a lot, somewhere in the background you need the reference material that says, oh, here's how we got there. And then just a quick word about consumer-centric designs. This is a model that we use at Forrester to help architects build consumer-driven artifacts, and it works the same for roadmaps. Before you start even putting pencil to paper here, first thing you want to do is clarify what you want. So if you're going to create a roadmap, there's a fair amount of work to that, so what do you want to get out of it? I mean, what is it you want as the producer of this thing? And then what do you want people to do with it? So people are going to take an action. And once you know what you want them to do, who are the targets? Who are the people who are actually going to use the roadmap? And what is going to motivate those people to take a look at this roadmap and do whatever action it is I want them to take? Now I can wrap all that together and create a pretty nice roadmap. So what result do I want? What action do I want people to take? Who are those people? And what's going to motivate them to work with the information that I'm providing them? One of the things that I get asked a lot is, once I've got a roadmap, okay, so what? And these are some of the things our clients say that they do with roadmaps. One, the big key there is, make them relevant, so that, again, back to the previous slide, so they're targeted to a particular customer or a particular customer base. But most often we see these things in once-a-year briefings around the state of technology, the state of a project, the state of an initiative, quarterly progress reports where we take the roadmaps and kind of, if you want to think about a stoplight report, where we color them in on where we are, so that people can get a sense of progress that we're making. A lot of times, architecture teams provide roadmaps as part of their standard deliverables in their product standard packages, so people can see what's coming next, not just where we are today. Application project deliverables, we've been very successful using those to help people understand the cost and the amount of change flowing through a project at a roadmap level. Budget planning process, always good, and I'm not a big poster fan, but I have run into a number of clients who, because these roadmaps are pretty visual, they like to create big, large posters with them to remind everybody, look, this is the big picture, because most of us get down into details very quickly. So, to summarize all this up, here's sort of, what we think about this roadmap stuff. First of all, they're part of this strategic landscape. They're not as effective as a standalone unit. They summarize more complex strategy documents, and that fundamentally is the goal of a roadmap. You can use them for multiple purposes. We can use them to talk about projects, initiatives, marketing changes, detailed technology shifts. They're really highly, highly versatile. And then keep in mind that they're primarily for communication. Yep, I want people to look at that and have some reaction to it, but in general, there's not enough detail there to do an analysis. Make sure that you pick a format that fits your purpose. When I started this, I thought, I can just get a few examples and throw them out here and show people. And then I started seeing all kinds of different forms and techniques that people were using around these roadmaps, and realized that, wow, there's a ton of different ways that you can lay them out. Just Google roadmaps and take a look at all the different things you see out there. And then remember that the whole idea here is to resonate with the consumer. And the mantra that I give people is these things need to be simple. In technology, in the IT organizations, we are really good at getting to the details and getting all the complexity down on paper. That's not what we want to do with the roadmap. What we want to do with the roadmap is less data, more insight. I want people to be able to glance at a roadmap and get it. I don't want them to have to study it for 5 days. I don't want them to have to read 10 pages of stuff to understand what the roadmap meant. I want them to be able to take a one-page roadmap, look at that, get the important elements out of it, and move on. So now I know I went through that pretty quickly, but that's pretty much the essence of road mapping as we see it at Forrester. And now I want to turn it over to Uli.
Thanks, Jeff. Really great stuff. I think there are a number of themes that I'd like to carry over into the discussion that I'll be having now, and just to name maybe three that I really think are very, very relevant. One is this consumer centrism that you highlighted, which is very important. So understanding who do I make that information available for, what context is that going to be used in. The second one is probably the urge for simplicity of information presentation, which I find very important. And then probably thirdly is really how all these roadmaps that are being managed by different people in different pockets of the organization are interrelated to a network, a mesh of dependencies. And I think all three are somewhat related to the topic of how can technology help managing roadmaps in an organization with the end game of orchestrating this enterprise transformation, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about now. So this is a brief agenda. As you can see, technology requirements for effective road mapping are one of the topics, but I want to start off with just putting road mapping into the context of the strategic IT planning processes. I'm going to then talk about some best practice examples for IT roadmaps, and want to finish off with giving some recommendations as to how one could get started into IT road mapping in an organization. So first thing first, let's see how road mapping is related to strategic IT planning processes. The main objective of strategic IT planning is to provide structure and governance in a world that is increasingly complex and extremely dynamic. Portfolios help to separate and group the different aspects in IT planning, and here on the picture you can see three ways of slicing into this portfolio landscape by grouping, not quite separating out, but grouping business strategy portfolio aspects from IT change portfolio aspects and IT asset portfolio aspects. And you can see the different capabilities that are required in these different portfolios, such as business strategy operationalization or demand management, or road mapping the business IT alignment in and by itself. So any of these particular themes can have several portfolios, again, where each would be aimed at a different goal as alternative reactions to external influences. And these different portfolios promote readiness and agility throughout IT to act quickly, no matter what the circumstances are. And ultimately, the aim of these portfolios is to manage the change over time. Now, as Jeff had already pointed out, that there is a lot of interrelationship and cross-dependency that we can see. And that interrelationship and cross-dependency originates from the fact that the decisions in these different portfolios are highly dependent on one another. And the transmission of these interconnections is typically done by virtue of roadmaps. So, for instance, the business strategy portfolio decisions are being publicized to the IT change portfolio space by virtue of business strategy roadmaps. The response from the IT change portfolio is, in terms of a roadmap, again, back to the business strategy portfolio, and these are IT delivery roadmaps. And equally, you would have, for instance, the IT asset portfolio decisions around technology and platform strategy be articulated in terms of roadmaps to the IT change portfolio, so as to letting the IT change portfolio actors know which platforms they are planning to bring about into the organization, which technologies should be obsoleted or phased out over time. Now, secondly, I'm going to look into the technology requirements that we can derive from the IT road mapping challenges. Firstly, I want to talk to the topic of interconnectedness. What you see here on the screenshot is for a business process sales and services assistant, and across a number of organizational entities where AI sales and marketing would be one, showing how is business support changing over time, and you can see this here by 4 consecutive years, spanning from 2009 into 2012. What you can see is how different IT assets are providing support to this sales and services assistant process, and how certain assets are being phased out, like this CRM AI, and other assets are being phased in, like the Salesforce one. And you can also see how this business support roadmap is interrelated with the strategy roadmap that has been defined potentially by a different entity in the organization, and that I can use to measure my own roadmap against in terms of strategy compliance. So you can see, whilst Salesforce is strategy compliant, and rightly so, we maintain Salesforce as a backbone of our IT support in that specific sales and services assistance capability area. We are planning to phase out CRM AI as well as this CRM CSS and CRM Opti Retail as assets that are no longer roadmap compliant per the CRM consolidation strategy that we have been told about by that other group in the organization. So what we derive from this is really that there is a need for a central repository. There is a need for time tagging all relevant objects and their object lifecycle phases. There is a need to monitor and maintain vendor technology life cycles, for instance. There's a need for status management from operational to in development to planned, maybe, or whatever status concept that may be applicable here. And there obviously are dependencies between these different enterprise architecture planning elements that are contributing to the roadmap. Now, secondly, one can easily understand how data quality is really critical to make sure that decisions are defendable by the information that is used to taking these decisions. So we have to make sure that the information that we are using for these decisions is inherently consistent and up to date at the time of decision making. This challenge is being catered to by clearly providing and distributing ownership and responsibility for the various pieces of information that is being used in the various road mapping exercises. Information management has to be user-friendly. One example could be wizards or could be automated processes. There's a need for monitoring information integrity and accuracy and alerting owners as to when a change may be required due to a roadmap decision in a different portion of the organization. And there's obviously a high need for integrating with other systems of record because there may already be established systems of record for certain pieces of information, such as business processes, for instance. Now, the ownership. There's also an ownership of the roadmap itself. So previously we spoke about ownership of information that goes into roadmap decision making. Now, here I want to talk about the ownership of the roadmap itself. And this ownership is really different from roadmap to roadmap. So there are business analysts involved. There are application owners involved. There are the IT strategists and planners involved. There are the business strategists and planners involved. And obviously enterprise architects and technology portfolio owners would be involved as well. For the roadmap management to be efficient and effective, it is recommended they be embedded into established processes processes such as requesting a new technology and approving the introduction of a new technology, and ultimately the procurement of such new technology. Equally, strategy operationalization, meaning taking corporate vision and strategy in a deductive process down to a level that is actionable, much like Jeff had articulated in his portion of the presentation. And then ultimately, we want to strive for automation of these type of day-to-day processes as much as possible. So workflow is going to be an improving aid in making the roadmap creation, maintenance, and communication processes more reliable and more targeted in complex environments. The fourth point that I want to dwell on is again going back to a statement that Jeff made earlier, which is really who is the consumer of your roadmap. So we have to provide a diversity of views for the different stakeholders. I'm showing some of these stakeholders here. I'm showing some examples of such views on the right-hand side. I want to zoom into two examples more specifically. One, the CIO in a situation like a strategic consolidation, as I mentioned earlier, or in a merger and acquisition situation like Jeff was highlighting in his introduction, it is very important to understand when is a certain organizational entity, like this FD marketing and sales organization, rolling over the process support for a specific process, like, say, account planning, from an established solution like my CRM CSS solution to a newly introduced solution like this customer manager solution that we are showing here in the screenshot. And I can clearly see how I'm rolling over from the production phase of the one solution to the production phase of the other solution, obviously having some precursory evaluation and rollout preparation phase, and having some subsequent limited production and shutdown phase that is accounting for the operational necessities that I have in complex organizational setups. The second role I want to zoom into is an investment board, and this investment board was busy with discussing the CRM environment modernization. They would want to know, for the strategic objective of modernizing our CRM infrastructure, what are the different initiatives that we have already kicked off, or that we are discussing kicking off right now. And for these initiatives, they want to know what is the state of affairs with regard to adherence to milestones, with regard to staying within budget and scope, and so on and so forth. Again, very simple representation, very targeted to a specific stakeholder group, in this case, the investment board. Rolling over to some best practice examples, let me first start off with a large international car manufacturer. The goal here was to use road mapping to provide each of the organizational entities with an accurate and reliable perspective on the time frame they need to switch from the current processes to a new set of more standardized processes and supporting IT solutions. Obviously, the roadmap users would be both IT and business in this case, because we are changing process and supporting solutions at the same time. The roadmap are used as both a decision making environment as well as a communication tool throughout a very distributed organizational setup with dozens of organizational entities being involved and articulating what is the process and solution rollout that they have to prepare for, because they will have to train personnel in adopting the new processes. They will have to manage the change management aspect of that rollout, and they obviously have to prepare for personnel and infrastructure to be in place as and when that rollout situation was to happen, say, in a specific manufacturing plant. Second example I want to make is one of a large insurance company. The goal here was to drastically reduce technology portfolio complexity by 50% over a 3-year time period. The roadmaps have been created to articulate phase in and, more importantly, phase out decisions along a standardized set of technology application portfolios, so databases, application servers, operating systems, e-business platforms, and so on and so forth. The roadmap users in that context would be the owners of these technology portfolios, but also the product managers that are the transmission instance from the IT organization into the business organizations. Roadmaps have been used to decide on the use of technology. For instance, saying, okay, we want to reduce from 32 different database platforms that we had originally in use throughout the organization to a standardized set of 3 different database platforms, communicating the roadmap of this rationalization, introducing maintenance and introduction, maintenance, and phase out of such third-party based technologies, but equally of in-house built architecture patterns or platforms, such as, say, a Unix stack or a e-business platform or a portal solution. The third example I would like to share here with the audience is originating from a large telecommunications service provider. Much like other telco companies, the challenge from the business perspective was to transition from an infrastructure service provisioning model to a content service provisioning model. It is all about linking business capability needs assessment with associated performance targets and the investment portfolio. So essentially, asking the question, which capabilities should I be getting rid of because I'm no longer seeing myself as an infrastructure service provider, and which new capabilities in turn I need to bring aboard or I need to strengthen in order for me to really be a successful player in a content service providing mode. The users and creators of the roadmaps are the business leadership on the one side and the IT product managers on the other side. It's again used as a decision and communication tool to articulate delivery of critical business capability supports and the support of the business strategy. The final example I'd like to make here is one of a large globally distributed logistics company which had identified a problem of heterogeneity in the application landscape with a significant amount of redundancy and complexity to the way they are providing support to the core business processes that are determining the business model of the organization. Now, in following the goal of a 20% reduction in complexity, there was a breakdown of this overall enterprise goal into individual organizational goals per main process supported. And so the users of the roadmap really would be application management and the IT leadership, the center of excellence for the business processes, the main business processes identified here. And it is really about delivering to an application rationalization strategy that the organization has set for itself. Now, what are the best practices we can derive from all these activities? And there are probably more than anyone would want to read, at least at this very moment. So I want to pick out two and highlight to you. One is really you need to get the peers from the business organization aboard in this roadmap exercise, because much of the roadmap is around business IT alignment, and you can't get business IT alignment leaving the business outside. So business and IT users alike need to be trained in articulating their plans and the desired life cycles of IT support in terms of a roadmap. And secondly, it is really one that is aimed at solving the interdependency challenge that is associated with roadmaps. There is a need for a strong collaboration between the different owners of the roadmaps, and obviously there's a need to establish guidelines and governance models for changing the roadmaps. I can't just serendipitously come along changing a roadmap and all of a sudden my organization is going to get into a lot of stress because it cannot possibly digest the consequences of such a roadmap change. Now, coming to the fourth portion of my part of the conversation is really, okay, where should we be starting with road mapping? And where you start, it really depends on what you want to achieve. So roadmap in and by itself isn't a strategy. And that, again, goes back to a statement that Jeff had made earlier already. The roadmaps are a means to a more important goal, a means in support of a strategy. Now, during our last year's user conference, actually in November last year, we had been discussing with attendees as to what their most critical issues are, and these were mainly attendees representing IT organizations. And it is interesting, of the 9 top relevant critical issues for these organizations, 7 are directly associatable with IT roadmaps. Let me give you a few examples here. If you were to start out with an aim to improve business collaboration, then linking business strategy and the need for capability improvement to IT deliverables is one area that would directly associate to the use of roadmaps. So articulating business strategy and articulating the response in terms of IT deliverables is highly simplified and eased by virtue of using roadmap. If you were more interested in a cost reduction strategy, then potentially you could look into disentangling your current project portfolio, identifying overlapping, redundant, or outright conflicting projects, resulting in the identification of projects and programs and initiatives that are either not supporting your strategy or that are constituting conflict. And maybe as a third example, if you were interested in improving your agility, meaning the ability of IT to react and respond to changes in the business side of the house, it would really mean that you want to harmonize the context between processes and IT solutions. You want, and across different organizations, and you want to identify ways of reducing complexity of process support, and that ultimately results, obviously, in faster time to market changes than business requests. So in a situation where today you may have 10 or 15 or even 20 different variations of supporting one specific process, you obviously are hindering agility, because any change imposed by a change on the business side of the house will have to be replicated to this 10, 15, or 20 different IT solutions or IT services that exist in the enterprise. And reducing this complexity down to 1, 2, or 3 is obviously greatly improving your ability to cater to the need for change as articulated by the business. Now, finishing up, obviously, the using road mapping and managing roadmaps isn't something that is just there for the value of itself. There are significant efficiency gains to be made by establishing a common information process framework and a standard form of communication to creating, managing, and maintaining these roadmaps. A lot of this information is to be managed even today, and bringing it on top of a consistent methodology and on top of an information management approach is helping you to save precious time of resources that you can leverage much better in other situations, like discussing with business on how do we need to change the IT support for critical business capabilities or processes. Secondly, there are savings in the investment budgets to be made by improving the management of concurrently running initiatives and transformational projects, and better aligning the operational, the IT change portfolio with the business strategy portfolio. And then thirdly, there are gains to be made in improving assignment of operational budgets in better alignment of IT services with the business demands, in essentially aligning with the priority changes that business is deriving from its own strategic considerations. With this, we are done for our presentation today. I think we have a few minutes to maybe address 3 or 4 questions. I'm handing it over to Sierra at this point.
Okay, hello everybody. We have a lot of questions that have come in during the presentation. We'll see how many we can get through. This first question is for Jeff. Jeff, how do I get input on what to map?
Well, it's really kind of an easy answer, which is, well, you just got to go ask. I think that one of the challenges for most of us who are in the architecture strategy space is we often don't wind up in the meetings that we need to be in, or don't get asked to come to the table. I was talking to one strategist recently, and he had a very interesting comment to me, which was that while I'd really like a seat at the table, I'd be happy with a chair at the wall. And his point was, if I can just get in the room and listen, I'll probably get most of the information I need to create a good strategy. So I think the key there really is, look at the domain that you're working in, figure out who the actors are in that domain that need information, and then ask them.
Okay, thank you. The next question, actually a set of questions, is for Uli. How can content be collaboratively developed? How do I communicate with colleagues about the roadmap? And how is the roadmap made available to its audience?
Good questions. I think the generic answer to this is by establishing a collaboration platform that can help you do the communication piece. Because more often than not, individual pieces of the information reside with individuals in the organization, and it takes 2, 3, or 4 individuals and the information that they have to be brought together for a certain aspect and piece of a roadmap to be assembled. And that can be provided by clearly assigning ownership and responsibility and role descriptions to the different stakeholders in the organization, and establishing processes that can link these individuals up no matter where they are sitting in the organization, both functionally as well as geographically. The same applies to communicating. It is certainly not a good mode to just push this roadmap information into the organization. It equally need to be provided in a pull mode, so that if I'm in need of certain information on, say, a strategy roadmap or a business support roadmap or a technology roadmap, I know where to find it, and I don't need to ask lengthy questions into the organization hoping that somebody will be able to answer me.
Okay, thank you. And Uli, there's another question for you. How do I keep my roadmaps up to date?
Again, very, very good question. Much of it is related to binding decision-making to the updating of information. And that's what many would call a stage gate process. So as you are defining your stage gate processes to decision-making, you need to make sure that certain information elements are available and aligned with certain stage gates. And you need to make sure that the person responsible for a certain information element is signing off on accuracy and integrity of that information associated with the stage gate. So they feel involved and responsible in that process of decision making, and the information update is, so to speak, a side effect of taking the decision in the first place.
Okay, thank you, Uli. The next question is for Jeff. What are the metrics and measures surrounding roadmaps? How do you assess the value of the road mapping exercise?
Well, there's an easy answer to this. I get all kinds of metrics and measurement questions from architects almost daily, as a matter of fact. I get a lot of that. But at the end of the day, the key to success here is, are they being used? So when I look at the kind of things that architects and strategists and planners produce, it's very hard to assign a dollar value to that. And while that's what we'd all like to get is, how many dollars did this particular roadmap save me? It's a very difficult thing to figure out. So I think the way to look at these kind of things is from two perspectives. One is, what's the reaction of the user of the tool when they use it? And if the light bulb goes on and says, wow, this told me stuff I didn't know, or, wow, you really reduced this complex problem to something that's easily understandable, okay, then there's value there. The second thing to watch for is, are you being asked to do more? I mean, there's kind of three reactions you can get at the end of the day. One reaction is ho-hum, so that's a message that says, I didn't quite design this the right way. There's another message that said, oh, who cares, which really is saying that, oh, you're not even close to the mark with this thing. But what you're looking for to know that you've done a good job is for somebody to say, wow, this is really helpful. Can you build me a roadmap that tells in this particular area about this project or about these technologies?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to squeeze one more question in. This is also for you, Jeff. Wouldn't the portfolio be the appropriate target of review regarding opportunities for reducing IT complexity, with the roadmap describing how that complexity will actually be reduced?
I'm going to assume there that we're using portfolio in kind of a generic sense. I think the answer there is kind of a qualified yes. I would start by saying that, again, roadmaps can be used at all kinds of levels. I frequently see roadmaps that are about a single technology. So where's Windows desktop operating system going? And I can build a roadmap with that. And it's very helpful if I'm dealing with people who are rolling out desktop technologies or who are making 2-year out decisions about what their application platform is going to be, that kind of stuff. But I do agree that portfolios are the way to go, and that the more we can raise up the roadmaps to a bigger picture, then I think the more value we're going to get. I'm working with a client right now that has a huge business transformation initiative. and I mean huge. And they are using capability roadmaps as the way to ensure that they get where they want to go at the end of the day. So they've rolled up tons of projects into these portfolios that are aimed at creating new capabilities for the business, and now they're road mapping through those things to watch all the changes that are going on and ensure that they're all still aimed at the vision they started with.
Okay, thanks very much. One more quick question has come in. Let's see.
Actually, before we go there, let me maybe add a quick statement to this question, because I really believe it's a very important and relevant question. In many situations, you want to be able to weigh out alternatives, and weighing out alternatives really means putting qualitative criteria to the different options that you have, whether these are different strategies or different demands or different capabilities that you could invest in, or potentially even different applications or technologies that you have an option to pursue. That qualitative assessment is very nicely supported by virtue of portfolios. Now, as and when you have taken a decision around these portfolios, you need to articulate how are you going to go about transacting that decision, because different to portfolio decisions, say, in investment spaces, the decision is not being immediately transacted where you say, okay, sell these shares or buy these funds. In the business IT space, it takes at least weeks, or if not months, to transact on the change that you have identified in your portfolio analysis, and that results in the articulation of a roadmap.
Okay, thanks, Uli. Okay, we're going to squeeze our last question in. This is for Jeff. Do we need to put benefits and costs on roadmaps?
Ooh, I get that question a lot, and I think and it's not a straightforward answer. Again, figure out who your audience is and what they're looking for. I would say on most roadmaps I see, they don't include specific cost kind of things. You frequently do see the goal laid out, which is just a kind of a way to express a benefit. But I have seen, and have actually personally done, a number of roadmaps that do lay out what the cost, kind of at a very high level, not detailed stuff, but at a very high level, as I watch a program go through a roadmap, to have kind of a cost line at the bottom of that roadmap that says, oh, okay, here's how much money we're spending over time to do this. And so that I have seen a number of clients who see that as a very effective way, again, to give executive level, sponsor level kind of guys an idea of what's going on. The key, I think, to making that successful is not get hung up on 2 decimal places down here on the cost, but more of a general resource flow kind of view.
Okay, thank you very much. We still have lots of other questions, but we've run out of time, so I'm going to hand this back over to Uli now.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone, for joining in today's webinar. It was a great pleasure talking here. I particularly would like to thank Jeff again for joining us today. I'm sure we'll have more opportunity to discuss the topic. It seems it is one that is resonating very, very well with the different players in the industry. We'll be making a recording of that webinar available on our website, alphabet.com, and that's going to take probably a couple of days, 3-4 days maybe, for you to go through this material at your own leisure. At this time, I'd like to really thank everyone coming in today, and have a great day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude today's webinar. You may disconnect your lines at this time, and we thank you all for your participation. Have a wonderful day.